welcome to a new Harry's Garage, and this one's going to be a bit different because I thought, seeing how it's the start of a new year, it'd be good to just reflect, look at 2018, the garage as a whole, what happened, what cars went, what cars arrived, and that sort of thing. Now, drilling down to the detail, if you have a count round, there are 16 cars in here and there's 14 bikes in total. So there's 30 vehicles to look after here, and it takes a bit of managing, as you probably imagine. And there's also the maintenance side of things. So I'm going to tell you about some of the costs as well. Kicking off, which did the most miles of them all? Well, it's a surprise, it's the Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce managed to do 8,500 miles in 2018 because it did that crazy trip up to the Arctic. And then, once it was back, well, we just used it more often than I expected. My son is quite taken by it, and if you've got anything that's a sort of period event, he went like Goodwood Revival, trip down there. And then we had an event at Windsor Castle where there's one car to take, and that was the Rolls-Royce. So all in all, 8,500 miles. Quite amazing. We spent quite a lot on maintenance on that car before the trip. Looking at the records, it was about £4,500 in maintenance, but we wanted to get it absolutely tip-top before setting off for the Arctic, and as you know, the points closed up, and that's the only problem we've had in all those miles, which is terrific, really. So that's a bit of a stayer. What else have we got here? The Jag XJ Coupe, that's going to have a good time in 2019 because it goes over the 40 years old mark. And I love cars once they don't have to need MOT and they don't need tax anymore. They're so much easier to manage, and it just feels like cheating the system. So that'll have a bit of a year in 2019. The Project 8 was the next one. I have a policy now of one car in, one car has to leave the garage. And the car that left the garage to make space for the Project 8 was that Porsche GT2. It was a big decision because I really quite liked that GT2. It was unique, it had so much horsepower, etc. But at the beginning of the year, it had a gearbox problem, it had a few oil leaks. So I took it to Autofarm, and they went through it. And at the end of the day, it was a bill for £21,000 or £22,000 because it needed a replacement gearbox. And we took the gearbox out, we found bits of metal in it and things. Didn't look at all healthy. And that horsepower, it had so much power, that car. I think was giving the whole car, really putting it under strain. I knew the brakes were next thing on the list. I had to do the disc brakes, and the tyres were wearing. And the other thing I felt with that car, it was very conspicuous. Short number plate, bright red GT2, there was no missing. And I've swapped it for a Project 8, which of course just blends into the scenery, no problem at all. But that Porsche, I just felt I was a marked man in it. And what it absolutely starred at, actually, was being on track. I went to a track day, that four-wheel drive, if it was wet, it was just demon on track. But I don't really use my cars that much on tracks. It's what they're like on the road, and on the road it frustrated. It was super stiff suspension, had a lot of negative camera at the front. It used to follow the contours of the road. It just wasn't nice on road, and actually the Project 8 is much better on road. And now it's here, the project, I have no issues making that decision. It was about £20,000 to swap into the Project 8 after I'd sold the GT2. So, it was a little bit more, but it's so easy to use, 4 doors, we're having huge fun. It's going to be a super rare car I can see going forward. And it's to my spec in that Merlin purple. And I have changed the wheels. The one thing I wanted it when I spec'd it was gold wheels. And I discovered a company called Platinum Alloys in Swindon, who can do anything with alloy wheels, and they did a deal to change it to gold. So it's a Ferrari matte or satin gold, I think it is, and it looks spectacular. Changing the wheels to that really lifted the car. So I am doubly chuffed with it. It's done about 3,500 miles already, that car. I've got a set of winter tyres on it. So in 2019, I want to give it a proper workout and see what it's like in the snow and things like that. So that's to come this spring. And then the Espada had a big year in 2018. It was its 50th anniversary, and I knew Lamborghini were going to have this event that we attended in September. So I did quite a lot of work on it. It got power steering on it, which is about £4,000, then some mechanical work, just making sure it's in tip-top condition. That was another £2,000. had tyres put on it. Dougal at Longstone Tyres has been on to me to change the tyres. It didn't have quite the right size. It has the full, not a 70 profile tyre, like the full profile tyre this Espada should have. And he had these Pirellis, and I have to say they've been really good on this car. Just added, helped the ride, and just new tyres always sort of freshen up a car. But then during the event out in Tuscany, it did a wobbly. It started to overheat badly. It was using water, and there is mechanical issues on this car. So in 2019, I've got to decide whether I want to spend money on the engine on this. It's going to be between 30 and 50,000 to do an engine rebuild on it. What I'm going to do is actually investigate it a little further and just see exactly what's wrong, because it runs so well. Now we're back in the UK and we're at more normal temperatures. It's running fine. So it doesn't feel right to spend that sort of money doing a complete engine rebuild on it. So yeah, we'll see what 2019 holds out for this car, but still a bit of a favourite because it's such a balmy design. Right, moving down the line. Okay, now the Countach and Testarossa. They've had quite a year. I ought to just add why you probably wonder why there's two Countaches here. That's because one belongs to a friend and he keeps it here, and it's just fun having the two Countaches together. Just, you know, when you open the door and see them there, it's just a wonderful sight. But this is mine, and that's my Testarossa. And this time last year, they were out on the Top Gear set because they used them on the new Top Gear. Part of the set, you'll see them when the program reappears. I think it's about, the series is about to start. That's where these live, and it's quite useful because I know where they are. It's in a lovely barn, and I'm not using them during the winter anyway. Anyway, they came back in the spring, and I needed to do a bit of work on the Countach because I hadn't done much maintenance on it recently. I keep a record of all bills, etc., going in these files. And the Countach, we did that big trip across Europe, went to Switzerland and all that, did 3,000 miles, something like that. And so it needed a fair bit of work. I had put new wheel bearings on it. There was a run out on the rear bearings as well, lots of work, and also all oils, etc., changed. And what really brought it to a head was I had a call from the Grand Tour because they wanted to do a feature with a Countach and Testarossa, and so I lent them the car. So I wanted it absolutely tip-top condition. So it was about £7,000 spent on the Countach, getting it ready for the filming. And I also, Pirelli, I've got a new tyre, this P7, which is what it was originally supplied on. They wanted me to test a set of tyres, so they went on it as well. They're about, I think it's about 2,500 a set, but this was a pre-production set. So after all the filming, it's actually a bit low on tyre, so they might need replacing. When the Countach came back from filming, I wanted to get rid of the wing. It always winds me up, the rear wing on it. I know it came with that, but the fact it does nothing and it destroys the design of the car for me. It just over-dominates. So that came off. And after doing the wheels on the Project 8, I'd always been tempted to have gold wheels on the Countach because it was available. If you're a very special customer back in 1987, you could option gold wheels. And a guy in the States very kindly sent me a pot of paint of the exact match. Went down to Swindon Alloys, and they matched that paint. And there was also a buckle on the rear wheel, and they took that out as well. So it now has a complete new look for 2019, the Countach. There's a trip planned to Italy in it in the summer, and I can't wait. It just feels more like my Countach now. This is how I want my Countach to look. Testarossa, just moved down a bit. The Testarossa I thought wouldn't need too much work before it went on doing this test. So it went in for a regular service. But then, during the filming, there was a funny rattle come for the engine. This shaft, deep down in the engine, there was meant to be a bearing on there, and the Woodruff key had dropped out, and to get that out, that meant the engine had to come out and a bit of a rebuild to get it done. I'm really grateful we spotted it happening, because it was sort of fairly slow speed. If it had happened on a motorway, it could have been catastrophic, but it wasn't. But it did lead to quite a lot of bills, and the cars had new tyres on it as well. I also had the wheels done before I discovered platinum alloys, so I had the magnesium wheels on this. So this car's had quite a lot of money spent on it, about £11,500 in 2018. But it is in absolute tip-top condition and is going to storm. So I'm going to try and make more use of this Testarossa in 2019. Right, moving down the line. I know we come to the Lotus Esprit Turbo HC, you can see here. This arrived in the spring and it's been an absolute hit since it arrived. It's a car, I like this 1987, this wedge look, the Countach Testarossa and the Esprit. I did have a 930 Turbo for a time, and I was considering one of those because they seemed like the set. There was a red one available to go with the Countach and Testarossa. But they're never that exciting to drive. If you see a Testarossa or a Countach sat beside the Porsche and you're going for a special drive, you don't take the Porsche. It's very good and very German and lasts well, but I don't find it exciting to drive. But the Esprit is another matter. This is this lightweight British car that is pure Lotus, just feels nimble. I was so lucky to find this one. It's a 19,000 mile example. And it replaced this policy of one in, one out. It was the Alpha 2000 GTV I had. Beautiful example, very low mileage. But again, it felt too vintage to me, and I wasn't particularly excited about driving it. It was and it was the perfect example. It was the same money into this. This was £45,000 when I bought it. Same money, a lot of money for one of this car, but it is absolutely pin. And I've enjoyed every minute behind the wheel, and again my son enjoys it as well, so that's a real stayer and a big hit in 2018. Alongside it is my Lotus Elan, which isn't getting a huge amount of love at the moment really. They're a wonderful car, but they just feel a bit delicate, and this little Alpha Duetto arrived. It's 2016 now. And since that arrived, the poor little Land Sprint isn't getting as much use because this Alpha is more usable. I love its design, and it's just easier. There's something a bit fragile about the Lotus. Yes, it handles beautifully and it's got a real rip-crap gear change and things, but you don't feel like going on a long drive with it. And it's a curio. I like having, because I've owned it since 1995. But the Alpha 2019, I'm hoping to do some big things with it. I want to go out to Italy in it. It's such a perfect example, and it's such a joy to drive. It's everything I want an Alpha to be. I put K&N filters on it, so it has a raucous bark on it. I paid somewhere in the late 30s, I think, for it now. They're around 45, 50,000. They still feel a bit of a bargain. So that's a big hit, and 2019 you're going to see more of the Alpha. Then we have the Jaguar Project 7, and the big surprise in 2018 is when I went to retax it in September, it needed an MOT. I've had this car for 3 years now, 8,500 miles on it, and I wanted to use it a bit more in the winter. It's one of those cars that, there's no reason not to use it during the winter, but I had these force contact sort of track day tyres on it, and they're not very good in the cold, to say the least. They're great when warm and you're on a track day, but in general, running around at lowish temperatures, there's not a lot of grip at all. And it's pretty lively at the best of times. So I've swapped it onto P0s for the winter now, and the hood's on, and when we get the right sort of days, it goes out as well. SL600 isn't doing anything. I'm not quite sure why I still own this car, but they're still so cheap and it still fascinates me with its V12, sorry. Then we have the little Fiat Cinquecento, which isn't going anywhere because it's like a piece of sculpture and we love it to death having that there. Now we get to the bikes. And I was a bit shocked when I actually counted them up, and there was 14 of them. I don't always have them all together all at once. And there was one or two additions in 2018, and they include the new Honda Africa Twin Sports Adventure. And it's a big bike because I knew I wanted to do this trip to the Dakar, if you've watched the video. And actually, in 2019, I'm letting that bike go. I'm currently advertising it because I just found it too big and too heavy off-road, the type of off-road I do. And I've got a choice of all these bikes anyway. And I don't really do a huge amount of on-road biking. I just prefer the adventures and going on trips on them. But another one that is definitely staying is this Cagiva 900IE. I've gone a bit long on Cagiva. There's now 3 of these elephants, they're known as this model, these Dakar bikes. and they're hen's teeth at the best of times. To have 3 is a bit crazy, really. But I am overjoyed with this one. It's the mix of Italianness, the Ducati engine, and this IE has this really high revving, really exciting engine. And it performs spectacularly. When we got it to Sahara and it was on the sand, it came alive. It's lightweight and it's a massive hit, and I'm hugely fond of this. The other bikes that arrived is a Honda XL 600 Paris-Dakar edition. Never seen one in the UK before. Spotted it on eBay. The crazy thing about the bikes like that cost me £2,000. That is a super rare, special bike. £2,000. It's less than the cost of a sort of getting the wheels rebuilt on the Testarossa. So in 2019, I'm going to get the XL 600 right up together because I want to go back and do some trips to the Dakar again, but this time on single-cylinder bikes. Whether I do a video on it, I probably will. The trouble is they don't get the views, and I see the view count on YouTube disappear as soon as I do a bike video. But I just love them to bits. I can't help myself. The only other cars that are missing from here, one is the little Mercedes R107 SL. You've probably seen it in here before. I went to start that up in the spring. I was going to have it serviced, and there was a fire in the engine bay. A petrol pipe had split, it caught fire. I had a fire extinguisher fairly close by. It did enough damage that it's been 6-7 months at the SL shop now, because some of the componentries had to be made up. They've had to make a new wiring looms and things like that. So that's the one car that's missing here. And the other car you might remember that used to be in here this time last year was that Spectre Defender I had. I sold it because I just didn't know what to do with this thing, and it was absolutely useless to drive actually on those big tyres and wheels. It looked spectacular, and I used to drag mud into here that didn't please me. So I sold it, and that then bought the combine and the tractors on the farm, and we've had that much more useful around here than those. So there you go, there's a full roundup of the garage. 2018 proved quite an expensive year on maintenance. It was around £50,000 or thereabouts on maintenance. I'm hoping 2019 is less so. I'm not looking to grow the collection at all. I think the classic car market has completely changed. You've got to have cars in the garage that you really want to drive. And all of these have a purpose in here, and I really like them at the moment. So it would be a bit of a wrench getting rid of any of them. 2019, I want to continue doing the trips. I hope you continue to enjoy them as well. Thanks for watching YouTube. There'll be more videos coming along very soon.